right, everyone. Welcome to another round. Tonight we are going to be talking about Kraven the Hunter with Scott Kolins.
Hey.
Stephen B. Jones. Myself, Jeff Johnson, Ron Swallow, and Ed Greer. Ron and Ed are drink and draw friends, professional comedians, professional podcasters, and all around awesome guys. So I'm really glad that you're joining us tonight because we've been wanting to do a show for a long time, and Ron and Ed were instrumental in helping me get another round up and started and giving me sort of the confidence to try something new and do the behind the scenes thing. So I really appreciate you guys, and I'm glad you're here.
Well, you know, looking at us, anybody thinks they can do this. So you're right. No, but thank you so much for that, dude. Obviously, I've been reading comics drawn by you, and I've watched animation by Steven, and I've read comics by Scott. So it's like, you know, I'm trying not to do that like sweaty guy at the convention thing. You know what I'm saying? With you guys, I'm going to try to curb that enthusiasm a little bit. Ron's internet is messing up. I was talking about it earlier with you guys. Sometimes it freaks out on him. But yeah, we're really happy to be here.
Ron, are you frozen now?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
All right,
so
sweet.
Before we get started, I wanted to have you guys let everyone know what your particular podcasts are at the moment. I know that The Greatest and The GOAT and you have a couple of other ones under your belts, and you have a Patreon. So if you don't mind, like, spitting some of that information out real fast before we get started.
Oh, totally.
I'm going to let Ed do it.
Yeah, well, once he gets back in phase with the rest of us, he'll contribute more. But well, we started out with a podcast called Nerd Goat, and it was your greatest character of all time. We had people come on talk about their character that they fetishize the most, the one they could just run their mouth about. And then we decided to branch out and do our own thing that we totally own ourselves, and that's the Greatest Pod, and that's what's up right now. And it's just, we kind of, if you can make a case for something being the greatest, come on the show. The hottest take, the whatever you want. We kind of like certain other podcasters. We entertain anything on our airwaves. You know what I mean? So it's like we kind of try to discuss. We discuss and debate what makes something great. So like that's kind of what the Greatest Pod is, and we have a Patreon for it at patreon.com/the Greatest Pod. And lastly, we have a sort of defunct YouTube channel called Rebooted, where we rebooted everything from Star Wars to Transformers. We did Transformers as a 4-hour movie directed by Zack Snyder. Wow. So, just all robot fights. So, yeah, we have all these irons in the fire, but the Greatest Pod is the thing that we're pouring our love into right now. And you were a great guest to come on and talk about the difference between an amateur and a professional. And I'm telling you right then, is when I figured out that I've been slacking on the Mackin as far as getting better at drawing. Because you just broke it down for me. Like the difference between these amateurs is just like, yeah, big butts, white background. That's me. I can draw. And it's like, that ain't it, man. If you really want to draw, you got to do the boring parts. That's what you said.
Yeah, the boring stuff. So I've been listening to your show for a while. And one of my favorite ones is like you did a whole episode about the entertainment and the stuff that brings you comfort. That was a really great episode where you just talked about the shows that you liked. And I was really surprised that you were such a sitcom fan.
Yeah. Well, when people hear that you're a comedian, you're supposed to shit on the people who, have insurance because they're funny. You know what I mean? Like the people who sit in those writers' rooms and just pound that crap out. We're supposed to crap on those people because they're not, their belly's not full of liquor and they're not at the Marriott and they're performing at the Tempe Improv or whatever. You know what I mean? We're supposed to crap on those people, but those people are the true workhorses. They're like comic book artists of the medium. Yeah. They wake up and no matter if the inspiration is there or not, they got to pound it out. And some of those shows are great in their comfort. Their last per minute is like a warm blanket.
The writing, especially on the show Frasier, which you mentioned, was always tight. It was super spot on.
Yep, absolutely.
I gotta listen to that episode because I've talked about this a lot. I think especially during the pandemic, that like there's been so much entertainment comfort food I've ended up going back to, just returning to certain things again and again. Like, just showed my partner Caddyshack for the first time. And the Blues Brothers, yay, he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Caddyshack's one of the best.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And I mean, Blues Brothers, it's incredible. Like, just the reveal, those 6 minutes before we even get to see Jake's face, like that series of shots, like John Land is such an incredible director in that whole pre-Twilight Zone the movie era, But it's funny, the thing you mentioned about Jeff and leveling up your game, I think we've made this joke already on the podcast at some point, but I feel like it's worth repeating that me and Dan Panosian always joked around where it's like, we got how to draw comics the Marvel way when we were kids, and we skipped right to chapter 5. We're like, let's draw the figure, and Jeff meticulously went like, okay, I can't go to chapter 5 yet. I have to master chapter 1. I'm going to draw guns and lamps and airplanes,
Yeah.
Literally, my friend.
Yeah.
Freaking Bobby Drake.
Yeah.
That's perfect timing, though.
Yeah. One of the things that Ed and I are doing now, because we talked about the basics after that show, we were like that. I was on, I guess, on their show, and we talked about perspective, and Ed's working on his perspective, and I have a book sitting on my shelf that is all about perspective, and I've been meaning to read it and just haven't for years. And so I just started looking at it and going back and doing just some of the basic exercises just on the first few pages. I'm like, oh yeah, I've forgotten how to do this.
It's so Jeff telling me about that conversation inspired me just in my latest batch of storyboards, where I started to realize, I'm like, a lot of times when I'm drawing like shots that are a little bit more close up, like how we're all framed right now or something like that, I might be very tempted to eyeball it. And I started extending all of my drawings down to the ground plane, regardless of where the camera was. And I was like, I was kind of wrong. I was kind of fucking that a little bit. And it's amazing how much, I'm not going into incredible amounts of detail, but it was amazing how much more confident I felt about all that stuff that I turned in when I just kept extending down to the ground plane, and going, wait, where is that ground plane again? And how exactly should that stuff line up? It makes a big fucking difference,
Yeah, man. I spent way too many years just drawing that little hatch of black that you do at the bottom where the character's feet are to be like, yep, I did it. They're there. They exist, boy. Do you see that hatching at the bottom? They exist.
Yeah, man, that's the style. That's the style at the time. So we're here to talk about Kraven's Last Hunt, right? And so one of the guys, the Mike Zeck, obviously his basics and his fundamentals are untouchable. Before we get started on that, I wanted to take a quick shot of Scott. What are you drawing there, buddy? Looks like Black Spidey.
Doing a little Black Spidey, man, just like it's in the book.
Nice. I like that.
Not to be confused with this madness.
Oh yeah. Well, look at the pencils, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, look how tight that is. Right.
So great.
Well, let's
the rendering's coming off. I'm drawing a little Spider-Man 2 in honor of our, if I can get that. There we go.
Yeah. Looks great, Jonesy.
Yes. Yeah. Wait, let's put that, Steve.
Oops. And what I do a lot when I'm just trying to warm up sometimes, what I'm doing today before the show is I'm like, I'm just going to do a little life drawing for my Disney Infinity figures. So because it's great, because then you can how does someone look from this angle?
I love that
reference.
Right. So,
what are we drinking tonight, guys?
That's a good question. Steve, what do you got there? A soda of some kind?
In honor of our non-drinking drinkers, I am drinking Boylan King Cola made with real sugar. And because I got my deadline done today, I'm celebrating with a Lion Bar, the greatest candy bar on earth.
It is one of the best.
Just so Jonesy isn't alone, I've decided to join in.
Sioux City Sarsaparilla. Well, it's root beer.
That's right, folks. Yeehaw!
Wow. All right.
Teetotalers tonight.
Yeah, you got coffee there. You're not much of a drinker. Are you?
Yeah, I got my pothead cup my girl bought me because
Nice.
it's a sort of a triple entendre. And oh yeah, and I don't have the temerity to draw with you guys at all. But this is a painting that I did that has Spider-Man in it. You want to zoom in on that? Well, it's got the spider people, and it's that's Miles in the chase design suit. You know,
Nice.
Just did that one. And we got the nice sort of a Bagley sized Spider-Man. That's kind of how big I like Peter to be.
Nice.
I like the highlights you have on the webs, almost as though they're like little puffy.
Yeah, they got to be made of something. You know, a lot of times they're just lines, but they got to be made of something.
I like that.
Yeah, and then we got a little Spider Gwen, and she's on the phone. You know, she's got
Of
stuff
course.
mixed into. But yeah, dude. But yeah, I don't have the temerity to draw while talking to you guys. I can't chew gum and walk at the same time.
Well, let's jump into chit-chatting about this crazy book.
This cola is really good. Just FYI. A little hint of vanilla in there. All right.
Ron, what are you drinking? Are you? How's Ron doing? Are you going to come
Mountain
and go?
Dew.
All right.
Green Demon.
Excellent. Sometimes I hate the internet.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's worth hating.
It's like plugged in to a main line. It says 200 meg.
Yep. This is why live television is funny. All right, let's start.
Ymir's Bones.
Yeah, let's start with the cover to issue 1. So one of the things, so there's 6 issues, and I loaded up a ton of pages from each issue, but there's only so many I can have, so it doesn't have every page. And I figured what we would do is sort of like flip through them as sort of just at a semi ludicrous pace, and then just have the conversation of what this story was all about and what it kind of meant and the things it accomplished and what the themes and stuff were, less than just going panel by panel, because we'll never get through any of it.
Well, just so we know that the old days they used to get a fair amount of.
We're not going to do a 7-hour show discussing each panel.
No.
We should also mention at the beginning with all this, since it did go through different books and it became one of those first books that ever launched a story and went through all the monthly titles of Spider-Man at the same time, it did get some blowback from that. There were Web of Spider-Man fans or Peter Parker fans or whichever that they weren't used to buying the other book, or most fans weren't necessarily buying all 4 of them, and the sales did go up on the other ones around Amazing Spider-Man, but they got blowback from fans who were like, wait, I didn't get point 4. Now I'm at part 3. What's going on?
Right.
And these issues really didn't have recaps. It was before that was a regular thing to do.
No, I mean, this book, it was really interesting rereading it today because the timing of it, right, came out the summer of '87, I think. And so it feels very influenced by Dark Knight in Year One and Watchmen, all the stuff of the magical 1986. And it's really made to be a trade paperback before, Marvel had started graphic novels and stuff. But I think I don't know if you guys, Scott and I were talking about earlier. The writer was talking about in the introduction that it was almost originally a Wonder Man story, which I thought was really crazy, given Jeff's love and connection to the character.
Well, one of the things I think is really great about the J.M. DeMatteis was it's very dark story. I mean, the themes are no joke, right? It's life and death and meaning. Yeah, it's
quite morose.
Yeah, and I don't know if he had the idea of basing.
There are people who get eaten.
Yeah, a bunch of them.
Yeah, there's attempted rape. There's people's heads being smashed against walls. That is such an incredible splash page. Holy crap!
It's a great way to put it. One of the things I think is interesting about the story is that it was originally he wrote it, the idea of it, and it was a Wonder Man Grim Reaper story, and then he finally sold. Then it was a Dark Knight Joker story, and then it finally became a Spider-Man story. But he wasn't going to use Kraven at first.
Right.
Yeah, he's supposed to make up a new villain, and other people like the new villain, but it's just like he was like, "No, man." Once I saw that I could do this with Kraven, because it's almost like how if you ask somebody if you were going to reshape things, would you rather work at Marvel right now or DC right now? And it's like, well, DC seems willing to do anything with anybody, so maybe I would want to go work for that company. And it just seems like at that time, taking Kraven and making him cool is a much bigger challenge than making an original character, honestly.
Well, yeah, I agreed, because Kraven always seemed like the least. I mean, he always seemed a bit jokey to me before I read this, and then fell in love with the character, and then I don't want to spoil anything, but dies at the end.
What?
I think he's.
Did I just ruin it?
I think he comes back 500 times, so it's comics.
Yeah, it's comics.
Yeah. I think it'll be fine.
Now, this page in particular, this page was what when I very first read this comic as a kid and back issues or whatever, this freaked me out, and not because of all the creepy crawly jazz, because he believes in his heart that he can eat Spider-Man's essence by filling a room with spiders and sloshing around with them like he's mud wrestling himself. That's weird. Like that whole concept. DeMatteis is on another one with that stuff, man.
Yeah,
that's great.
Well, I mean, the idea of he's a serious hunter, like eat the heart of your kill to get its strength hunter, like old school. And you're right, Ed, it made him terrifying.
Well, that was the thing too, is that I think I took it mostly too as the hunter thing, like Jeff was just saying. But the more I've heard DeMatteis talk about it afterward, he was also trying to let us know at this point, and kind of foreshadowing that this Kraven was crazy. He was just flat out crazy, either from the intoxicants and everything else that he's done to make his life last so long or whatever. Yeah.
A lot of naked men in this comic too. Just
yes,
yeah,
a ton.
Well, the time that Mike Zeck has to draw the male crotch tastefully, there's like 6, 7, 8 of them in here, and he's killing it every time.
Well, his attention to detail is fantastic.
And when Kraven's not naked, he's in the skimpiest shorts he's ever worn as a character, I think.
He's in a Tarzan thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever hunted with your bear. I do it. I definitely wear the least amount of clothes possible, because I mean, I got to be able to move.
Yeah, I mean, you can't wearing like boots or pants. It's just getting in the way.
You need your voice to breathe when you're out there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But no, on that page, that last page, real quickly, can you roll it back? That guy, the African gentleman, one of many African gentlemen who seemed to serve Kraven, he brought him back with him some kind of way.
Right.
But basically, that shot of him flying the helicopter is sick as hell, dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's almost like paternal. Like he's like, that's my boy going out to go kick some ass. It's got all this emotion. Just a very simple panel. I just wanted to point that one out. I love that one. The one right next to it's a showstopper, but that panel right there cements that this is real on some level to me. That somebody can see Kraven doing all this stuff.
That's just a great panel too, because we see these guys and they're part of the background. And at first, it seemed like when I first read it, I thought like, oh, this is his staff. This is the people that he have working in the house. But then as I read it this again, I'm like, oh no, these are his friends. These are his fellow hunters. Like they're part of his cadre that goes out and does this stuff. And it's
part of his world.
And, it's just a great panel like that. It sets that whole thing up. They're sitting up watching from above.
Well, yeah, and it's the, as you know, as everybody talked about earlier, Kraven is, what if we tried desperately to make Tarzan cool in the 20th and 21st centuries? You know what I mean? And so trying to figure out how you have to be close to the people, you have to be close to the land, you have to be close to the animals, you have to be of a piece to really be part of it to get the superpowers or whatever. And in this Kraven story, this is I can see how he got put over in this, because he's taking intoxicants, he's spazzing out, he's being Spider-Man better than Spider-Man as we flip through. It's a big deal what was done with Kraven in this one. And yeah, it was almost sacrilege to get rid of it right then, but that's really perfect on a lot of levels too.
Yeah.
Another big component of this book to me was on this page, Jeff, but it goes throughout the entire series, is there's always like these cinematic shots that are taken that are either echoed again somewhere else or here on the top here. You've got the triptych of Spider-Man swinging across, and then you've got the triptych of the helicopter. They're both kind of doing the same thing, so they're echoing each other. And I found that as a bunch of those echo panels happen throughout there, because you have like one panel of the digging the ditch, and then you go and do other stuff, and then you got another panel that's digging that grave, and then you do a couple more pages, and then you got another panel of digging the grave. A bunch of those callbacks, it changes how you read the book. It makes it that kind of thing, like, oh, I've got to pay attention. There's something happening back here. Oh, wow, how is this gonna build? It's really kind of magical.
Yeah, the two of them together were really, and Zeck definitely was adding the visual subtext, right? Like he's creating these almost like webs, right? Threads on a web, like that are all linked together, telling this one big story. Because those images stay in your mind as you start to flip pages, because they sort of like, they're almost like looking at the sun. Those echoes, those visual echoes are there.
Well, it's channeling a little bit of Simonson Surtur, where the placement of them too, like it's, Surtur banging away on the sword of doom that's going to create Ragnarok, and having that imagery at the bottom of the page is an interesting way of kind of, it's almost like a score, or something.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if you guys noticed, one of the things I love about this panel, or that when he's that second panel there, like it's not Raid, it's Frayed. He's like it's the fear again. Like there's all this stuff, and he gets hit with that that dart. But it's exterminating. How great is that to have as a billboard? Just I mean, that's just genius. I read that, I'm like, oh, I got to use that sometime. It's such a good idea.
That was a great choice.
Yeah, I love that page, and I love this page a lot. Like that middle section of panels where it's just like he's becoming more and more enmeshed. That's what that suggests. You know what I mean? It's just like that's how you do it, baby. My boy Mike.
Well, he's caught.
If we go back really quickly, just 2 pages, I feel like it's important to. After the Frayed page, there's a Spidey jumping across the. Did you get that one, Jim?
Oh no! Sadly, I don't have all the pages in yet.
Okay. So yeah. There's a great one where it's a multi-image shot of Spidey jumping across, and I feel like Jeff was the master.
Hey, check it out! I got that.
Thank you, sir. Or no, it's not that. It's not that one. It's the next one, I think.
Oh no! Sorry. I take.
Thanks. Yeah, there you go. And I feel like Jeff's the master of those shots. I think when Jeff did his 2 fill-in issues of Amazing Spider-Man during Bagley's run, I think there's a couple great multi
Mandela effect or whatever.
Yeah, that multiple image, that after image. Yeah, I definitely stole that from this, and from John Romita Jr. was the guy who I learned it from.
Well, but
when I say learned it from, I mean stole.
But it's almost like those dudes who are like hella good at drawing boxes, or those people who started out as architecture students. So next thing you know, all of their shots are basically New York from above, and then a kind of an okay drawn guy. But boy, this is New York from above because I'm an architecture guy. You know what I mean? So you figure guys, you people who can really draw the figure, that's your cheat. Like, look how many times I'm going to draw the figure because it's so easy for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I'm most impressed with the faces that he drew.
Oh yeah. Well, look at that. You're right. That expression is pure madness.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, and you feel everything.
And the previous page has that triptych thing that Jeff Scott's talking about. Exactly. Where those 3 images of Kraven. And it's really fascinating to kind of have Spidey in the foreground for all 3, because it's essentially as if, like the rest of the shot is the same, so there's a lot of very cinematic kind of almost storyboardy type shots in this.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back really fast because I just wanted to, was it this page?
Jeff, it's your show. You can do whatever you want.
It's our show. So so this scene where Spider-Man takes money out and gives it to the dead criminal for basically his coffin and a plot of ground, right? It's such a great shot. Like, it shows almost a Steadicam shot of Spider-Man having this reaction and putting the money down. And I think that nowadays staying on the same angle, it's just not done as much. I would have fallen into throwing a close up of the money going into the thing instead of him throwing, like, I would have pushed the camera in, and I just love that Mike Zeck did it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, we're still on a morose topic. Everything that's brought in here is always like leading to this point of thinking about death.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and then
Oh, and the funeral. I mean, this blast, that whole section is really hard. But when I picked that funeral, at the funeral, when you just see it, it's like Kraven is so melancholy about having won for a second, but then he's like, "Ha ha ha, suckers! This is awesome."
Yeah, right. Like,
Again, showing his unbalanced nature.
Look at him, and it's just beautiful,
pure madness.
Those pages that we were looking at too, right? When Spidey's trapped in the net, I realized, so JM definitely feels like he's inspired by a lot of the great stuff that Frank Miller was doing, particularly in year one by having thought balloons being captions and stuff. But then I feel like he did take it to another level that I hadn't seen, which is that he has characters having conflicting thought processes with themselves, And I thought that's great because you don't usually. We all do that, right? Like, there's never just one voice in your head. Like, very often you're like, today's going to be a great day. No, you're a piece of garbage. I'm going to draw a really good panel right now. How are you going to do that, sucky guy who can't draw? And I feel like so I thought that was kind of a cool where he clearly was like, all right, hey, Miller and Alan Moore did some really great stuff with these thought balloon and captions things, but what if we play with that? What if they take that a step further? And I think it's really effective.
Absolutely. Well, you really get to feel who Kraven is, and you get to join him in his world of madness.
Jeff, do you have that on the next issue? Do you have that one where Kraven is standing over the grave, or how many? Well, obviously that iconic. I mean, these are also these when people go, "Oh, Kraven's such a great character." It's funny how all the articles about how Kraven is so great show pictures from this.
Yeah.
Like almost alone. Kraven's so great. And they show image after image after image from this. It's like, that's how great Kraven is, dog. Because the story just elevated him. And it's really, to me, just to get intellectually maudlin right now, this is exactly what comics can do.
Yeah.
Somebody out there is going to write that story where Stiltman is deadly and cool. Kevin Smith wrote,
or at least interesting.
Yes. And I think Kevin Smith wrote maybe the definitive Mysterio story besides maybe this new movie. You know what I mean? So it's like, you could grab these guys who suck that maybe one of these older creators made on a weekend because they were beating a deadline. And then you can come and infuse it with this. You could come in and infuse Kraven with this Russian passion and soul, as DeMatteis says.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I felt the same thing about Wonder Man. Like, I don't think that Wonder Man has a very mixed fan base of people who think he's ridiculous and fun, people who think he's super cool. And I always kind of saw him as this almost tragic eternal hero character. And so when you're working on a book, I know you just can't help put yourself into it, whether you're writing it, drawing it, inking it, or just even reading it. You can't help but bring a lot of yourself to any of these stories. And I think that stuff definitely comes through here. I mean, DeMatteis was talking about that he would not have written this story 6 months later the same way.
Right. Yeah. He was going through a dark time in his life and it affected, Yeah. I mean, you forget sometimes how suggestible, you could be working on something. You're like, why am I feeling so depressed? And it's like, oh wait, are you drawing something really depressing? Are your characters going through something really intense? Like, I'd had a hard time working on this one cartoon. I remember one time where I just wasn't a good match for this production. It was like a very kind of dark thing, and I'm not really that dark of a guy. And then I always felt like Steve Rogers in the first part of First Avenger, where he's just wearing the USO outfit, like hanging out with all the like, and somehow I'd wandered into like, Friday the 13th or something like that. And it's like, this just does not work. And my next job after that was a Scooby-Doo video, and I'd never worked on a Scooby-Doo video before. And I just found like, oh, it's physically impossible for me to not smile while I'm drawing Shaggy and Scooby,
Right.
So, and I mean, talking about where JM was when he wrote this, it does make you wonder about, like, man, what goes on in the soul of Mike Zeck? Like, when you think about like Master of Kung Fu, when you think about this story, when you think about the Punisher miniseries or that Punisher graphic novel.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, Return to Big Nothing or whatever.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Damn, that's such a good. I must have read that thing a million times. Like,
Yep.
There must be. I mean, that it'd be funny if Mike Zeck was just like the sweetest, nicest guy ever. But it feels like he's definitely got some demons in there that he just puts out onto the page.
Right. Yeah, I skipped ahead a little bit to where we get to meet MJ, and when they first wrote the story, when he first pitched it, they were not married yet, but it works so much better as like they're newlyweds, and then he just doesn't come home.
Yeah.
And then she has to deal with the idea of, what if my husband's dead?
Well,
What if Pete's dead?
right.
She has on. She has so many clothes as compared.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but like when we were kids, access to hot chick drawings was pretty limited. So this was a big deal.
Yeah. Gwen Stacy's
Underwear? We don't know.
Yeah. Gwen Stacy's go-go boots were just pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just imagine the ankles under there, and now you can see ankle all day.
Yeah. Well, I love symmetry is obviously a part of this entire story, but like how many echoes there are of her killing this rat.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the whole thing, I think the whole thing is based on like whether you accept those echoes as some almost metaphysical force hurtling these themes at the characters or whatever, because like a lot of times characters just meet up because they're supposed to, because the story has to go on. There's not any real logic to why this magic is working. Those herbal drugs that Homeboy was drinking make him be able to find and do whatever he needs to do. He beats up vermin, all this jazz that just happens because it's because the themes are so strong. You just like let it go because it's like, yeah, we got to see this. Forget logic. We got to see this.
I just like to be happy that Ed used the verb hurtling, and in honor of his poster behind him, I'm going to say, "Pathetic earthlings, hurl to live your bodies out into the void."
Well, I mean, it's funny that you brought that up, Steve, because that is what the story is about. Like they're always just hurtling themselves out into the void. That's kind of what the theme of this entire miniseries is like we're constantly dealing with death, and it surrounds us, but we try not to think about it. But like when you stop and think about it, it's horrifying.
Yeah, and the uncertainty of this lifestyle, the whole thing. It really takes a kind of sobering look at all of that at the time, more so than a lot of other books at that time, which is one of the reasons why it got so much attention and has aged pretty well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
30 years, right? That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Oh, old.
Yeah, I love this whole Kraven trying to approximate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love how, if you really notice, I mean, obviously you guys notice, but he doesn't draw him the same size as regular Spider-Man. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit broader, and it weirds you out on a level before you even really see him take the mask off or anything.
Right, because he moves different too, where he's not doing the spider crawls, or he's not clinging to walls like that. He's hanging off of stuff.
Yeah. He's
or
trying
just
to do
crawling
it
on the ground.
Yeah, he's trying to do it to the best of his ability with his other animal gifts that he brought back with him or whatever. And there's all this basically, you go on a world travel and you come back with stuff from all these other places, and Kraven, his chosen place was, Africa. So that's interesting.
Right. Keep going.
Yeah, the one where he's lapping up the stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's crawling. Him crawling through this mansion. That's another thing. Talk about the acting that Zeck is putting into this thing, because DeMatteis was talking about he wrote it Marvel style, but not Marvel style like some mythic Marvel style. Like, okay, here's the plot, here's what you need to do, and basically not necessarily panels per page, but up to that point, basically. And
Right.
Zeck is pacing this stuff out really well. And he went back in and was just like, oh damn, look at what I can do with all these captions. Look at all this extra life I can give to these sick ass drawings with these super captions that he's throwing in there to suggest, their mentality and stuff.
Yeah, I think I don't actually have the next page where he does drink the stuff.
It was just the look on his face. I have it right here, but like the look on Kraven's face while he's
there you go.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
The look on Kraven's face while he's lapping from the bowl and he's that sells the next 2 issues worth of stuff that's happening in this book is stuff like that. It really makes you see that he's nuts.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the amount of expression that Zeck gets in. Like, one of the things, I mean, Zeck is known for being a fantastic storyteller, but I always think one of the things that he doesn't necessarily get credit for is just how subtle his expressions are, how wide his range of emotion is, what a great actor he is. And like, Ed, you've drawn a bunch of comics. That's hard to get your characters to convey a particular emotion or a feeling. It's such a hard thing to do.
I'm straight up intermediate, bro. I got gritty face, I got decent smile, and I got blank, sexy expression. That's what I can do. That's what I can do reliably without reference. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we skip ahead.
Well, if it helps, I can draw a circle now.
Oh yeah.
Watch out!
Yay! Watch out, world.
You know what? That's
Almost.
actually super hard, Ron. It's not easy to do.
Apple, you're gonna get that in the mail soon.
Oh, excellent.
Drew.
Yeah, freehand in almost any shape is hard. That's a wild thing. They don't, you remember as a kid, you just sort of eyeball triangles. When you're a grown up, just try to draw a triangle. It's like, it's just straight lines.
Right.
That's why this stuff is so amazing.
Yeah. So I wanted to real fast. I know we're speeding through stuff, but
I must be obtuse because it's really hard to get a triangle right.
Okay, Mr.
And I reject that. And
Neither one of you are cute. So that middle panel. So Scott actually reached out to JM today and asked him about it. Like, who are these guys? Because I thought,
who dressed these guys?
These are
not your normal muggers.
And apparently they're supposed to be guys. They're mean jocks who are just at the gym.
Okay,
mean drunken jocks apparently just coming from the gym.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah, I would buy that for sure.
Drunk basketball pickup
I was listening.
game.
Yeah, Ron.
Where he talks about, writing this and everything. He mentioned was the letterer and how important that is. And I was curious, do you get to pick who letters your stuff?
That's a good question. I know that for the book I'm working on right now, we handpicked the letterer. It's a friend of ours and someone who we know has a wide range of lettering skills. Like, he can do the sound effects. Obviously, they can all do the sound effects, but he has a lot of hand lettering. So that each character and different races will have a different feel to when they're talking. And so we got to pick ours, but I do know that sometimes it's just the guy who's next in the slot. But who was the letterer? It's
and it may not be the same letter throughout the whole issues. That would have been the old kind of situation that letters come and go. They just get the assignment that's in front of them.
Right. This one was Rick Parker. And I know that as a letterer, you don't make much. Back in the day, you didn't make much per page, so you had to do a lot. And it was all hand lettered right on the page.
Well,
he was really being nice to DeMatteis about this whole thing and giving different people different fonts, which was a new deal. That was really not done back then.
No, that was hardcore.
Mm-hmm. I just want to the sound effect when Kraven drops in front of the muggers and Mary Jane is swap with 3 P's. We were just talking about letter. Yeah, there you go. Swap. I love it because that is that kind of wet, slappy sound.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole onomatopoeia of sound effects, I've always like some guy. I don't know if the writer wrote that or if that was the letter decided to do that, but yeah, the shaka crack.
Let me rock your shaka crack, shaka crack.
That is a bust. That is a busted face.
Shaka Foom.
Yeah.
And Zeck does it there for that reason. I mean, again, as a consummate storyteller, he's making it a way more violent situation than you would normally see for Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah, Peter would never slam a dude's face into the wall like that.
And it's so awesome because, again, it's for that storytelling moment on the next page when Mary Jane sees the horror of it all. Not only does she try and stop him, but then on the page after this one, she doesn't even have to explain it. You just saw how ugly it was.
Yeah.
So on the page after this one, she goes, "That wasn't Peter."
Also, I don't have that page.
Oh, the next page. Hang on.
Yeah.
It's such an awesome moment. I mean, I know you couldn't put them all in.
Yeah, sadly, I couldn't put them all in. I tried to squeeze in as many as I could.
That's what I actually don't have right now either. Oh, yeah.
But then he leaves.
Yeah.
And then she looks up and she goes, "That wasn't Peter." So
Yeah.
that whole storytelling moment we got with almost no dialogue, nothing hardly going on besides just this ugly, brutal action that's going on and her trying to stop it or whatnot. It's all told right there when she goes, "Oh, that was not Peter."
Yeah.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, complicated storytelling, tricky stuff for that back in that time.
Yeah.
Especially because, you're getting, in one panel, we're hearing Kraven's thoughts and his caption. The next panel, it's Mary Jane's,
Yep.
Hey, it only took us 42 minutes to get to the second.
Yeah, the third one.
Hey, we're on the third one. It's almost evening out.
Okay, that's a really good page. Now the next page, also really good. And that page is great.
All I want to say about this page is, and it's been mentioned by every comic book artist I've ever talked to, but like if you look at that window, that's a decent window, man. It's got that little lock on the side. It's got actual dimensionality when you're looking at the way it's laid out in perspective, the squares within squares, all that jazz. It's a convincing window. It's not just a pane of glass in between bricks like a lot of people draw. And people draw like that for like covers sometimes, just pane of glass with bricks around it. That's a window. No dimensionality, nothing. People get away with that all the time. Zeck's doing it right here, baby. Oh, and you notice how he's not holding on a web. It's just a little rope. It's just a little rope up there.
Well, and also the subtext of like he's still behind, like it's still a web. Right, it's still bars. It's still this barrier that he's trying to get through. Right, that he's dealing with. Like there's, I know that one of the shows you guys talked about that I listened to was Ed. You and Bill were talking about what makes a good comic and why comics are sort of unique, and it's a show everyone should listen to, by the way. So, just a quick interjection. All of our links are down in the description box. So check us out. Check out their podcast. You'll appreciate yourself. And so I think that this kind of composition, this design just takes a ton of planning. Like it's so hard to make it look so simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he got the perspective on the buildings right. I mean, I don't know that he got it right. From my eye, it looks great and it's simple.
It's a very good, at least 2-point perspective for sure. We have a hello from the Philippines in the comments, by the way. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, you know what? I have not been paying attention to that at all.
Thank you, Steve.
Oh, sure, Scott. I'll be here all week.
Yeah. Awesome. Right. And then this might have been the first time. I mean, this fight is brutal.
Yeah. Get to the whooping because that's
hard. There's a freaking neck break.
Yeah.
Yep.
That busted.
Right. So this, I think, with the series really, I mean, the series has been dark and scary and kind of upsetting, but like this scene for me, when I first read it, this took a turn for me. Like I think this might've been the first time I actually saw someone kill someone in a comic.
Right.
Jeff cried the whole night. I was there.
Yeah.
You guys
Holding
have
him-
known each other that long. That's plausible.
Yeah, right. A loss of innocence.
Oh, yeah. Well, Jeff, can you go back that one page, please?
Yes.
That one. Now, look, I wanted to mention this the last time I'll mention it. Zeck breaks that old Buscema Kirby rule of never show the exact moment of impact. He breaks it all the time. He
Yeah.
breaks it all the time. That crack from the other thing, this thing, the actual moment of impact, when rendered well, can give you the actual impact that supposedly the moment before or the moment after give you typically when you're talking about, how you really should draw a punch or a reaction to a punch. He's showing a straight up foot landing on that guy's face, and I could feel his head kind of bow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these neck breaks and stuff. He's not showing the moment after the neck break. That's the moment he got his damn neck broken, and it's still very effective.
Absolutely.
So I just want to point that out. He's really good at he breaks all the rules, but he knows all the rules type of guy. Zeck is killing it, man.
Well, I mean, do you guys remember his Master of Kung Fu stuff? I love that stuff. His action is always top notch.
Yeah.
Super
I mean,
duper.
yeah.
Yep, and that guy's dead.
Yeah, this is. Yeah.
They should remember too, again, and with all of the stuff that we're seeing, and we're talking about this graphic nature of the story and the morose nature, whatnot. This would be a really weird thing to like walk into. Like I'm going to buy my latest month issue of Peter Parker Spider-Man. Whoa! What in the world is going on?
Yeah, where's Razorback? I don't understand.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
where's the rhino for the 57th time?
So the editor Jim was saying in the interview anyway, that it was gonna just be in the one comic. Like, was it Web of Spider-Man, Scott? Was that the one that he was working on? So it was just gonna be in that one.
I think so.
And then they decided to put it through all of them because it would have destroyed the sense of gravitas if he was dead in one part of Peter Parker's story, but the other two parts of it, he was fine. I think that would have ruined it. But having it cross over made it super real.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and in the interest of moving on, I just got to say
They killed him.
And this Kraven again. Look at Zeck is real good for the like kind of little legs to emphasize how broad the chest and the I guess the lats and stuff are. That's
Absolutely.
like I'm so big that my legs have to be little. Mark Teixeira does it all the time too. I am too big for my legs to be. I'd have to have Rob Liefeld legs to equal out how big my chest and my trunk is. I can't do it. So my legs have to be kind of shorter to emphasize that. The way you got to draw Hulk's head smaller to make his muscles look bigger.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've been talking about Zeck a lot, but so I mean, if you take a look at the inking,
oh yeah,
Bob Cloud is like his use of line is amazing. Like he really captured. It's so moody.
Yeah.
Moody, very natural, organic,
And there's a page missing
and a
where
bit of grit too.
where Vermin eats a woman.
Yeah.
I had to cut some stuff to fit stuff in, but then we get him messing up the cops and then just being gross.
Yeesh.
So disturbing.
And, another one of those moment of impact shots I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on her face. It's just
so gross. And
Also, he wants to lick his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
dude.
We're
disturbing.
going full on gross here.
Yeah. And then, so the idea, I think one of the interesting themes of this whole is Kraven's desperation to prove himself. And the way he decides to do it is defeating Vermin by himself, hunting Vermin down, because Spider-Man and Cap Spider-Man needed Cap to help him defeat Vermin before. And so just the idea of replacing someone and doing their life better than them, it's so manic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not very nice.
Right. But I think it's one of those kind of, it's such an interesting choice for a villain because, I mean, not to be disparaging, but comic book villains often are a little bit, I'm going to steal the moon, or I'm going to rob Fort Knox, or I'm going to destroy half the universe. Like, those are hard to get my head around, but like wanting to prove something to someone, right, that you admire or are angry with, that I get, right? Trying to defeat, even a compatriot, like I'm gonna win, I'm gonna get him, That I understand, and that really made Kraven human.
Yeah, and they set that up, just what you're talking about, that change of like polarity on his personality or the viciousness of it. Because at the end of that first issue, remember Peter's like, oh, okay, fine, he hit me with the dart, he's got me in a net. Now he's going to talk for an hour, and then I'm going to get out of this, and he's got a rifle. But I'm good. Wait, he's got a rifle. Oh my, it's supposed to be turning all that stuff that we're used to on its head.
Yeah, and once again, just not to harp on it too much, but like this is another one of those, just like he knows where Vermin is because he played with a rat, and he has these like jungle powers that he drank the juice. He drank some juice. You know what I mean? And he ate a spider and beat the hell out of Spider-Man. He's chilling out with a rat, and now he goes down and beats up Master Splinter here. It's wild.
Well, I gotta tell you, Ed, I'm right now, and I know where every guy with a step-up truck is.
Right. Listen, it's the potions and the roots, Ed.
Yep.
They work. They really, really work. Yeah.
So Dave said, yeah, you hardly.
He's biting him on the foot.
This
That's
is
terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I think is, Ed, so you're doing a lot more comics now, and I know that we talk about comics a lot, and I think that one of the things that Zeck does really well that it's very difficult to do is have these basically wide shots in every panel, like the full figure shot over and over again, so you can see all the action. That's really hard to do, and I think it's kind of sadly out of style. Like, the urge is to be more like TV and cut in more, like to move the camera a lot more, to have a lot more dramatic shifts of perspective. But I just think like being able, it's almost like you're there watching the fight. It makes it a lot more personal and immediate.
Well, but why do you think that's our storyboards like this now? Because one thing, I mean, when I see a lot of the storyboards that get printed online, they have less of this than this. You know what I mean? Like this is more, it had, like you said, static background, characters doing different actions on a repeated static background. That seems like some storyboardy stuff, but it's almost like storyboards don't do that either.
I think one of the things that comics is
Zeck was brought into Marvel at the time of Jim Shooter, because that most of those things we're talking about would be very much Jim Shooter isms, his choice of how he would direct his artists or his stable of people at Marvel at that time and how they would tell a story.
Yeah, this was, and also I think film at the time was a lot more single shot. Like with the advent of digital and editing software, that the vogue and the zeitgeist for storytelling now is just a lot more quick cuts. That's a lot more shots. And I just don't think, I think this kind of storytelling would seem almost slow to people who are used to the MTV 1 second cut regimen.
But at the same time, you never know when that stuff's going to kick back in. Like when Brian Hitch did Ultimates, there were so many times with his action shots, he would pull way back.
Well,
and it was great. It really brought attention to him doing that book.
Yeah, that wide thing he started doing on the Authority. I mean, no, it's not Brian Hitch hour, but that widescreen thing he started doing on the Authority is just super sick. And it's hard because, like Steven was talking about earlier, he has to know where the center of the earth is just to do a thin panel where, Midnighter and Apollo are doing X, Y, and Z. Right. That thin panel, he has to do all those grids to find out where the ground is, where all the stuff is. He doesn't cheat. I know he doesn't cheat. I can see it.
No, he lays everything out.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great shot. Because also too, I mean, there's a very subtle good perspective there. Like the perspective on Vermin's receding figure is correct and very difficult to pull off that kind of receding foreshortening. And then the perspective on Kraven is great too. It's a really great shot.
Well, and it's got the impact that you want. Like, I have vanquished you. That shot suggests that. There's so many ways that he could be at Kraven's feet that don't necessarily suggest that I vanquished your ass. But this is I have vanquished you. That's what that shot suggests.
Yeah. And we watched Kraven beat so many people up. Like, at this point, Vermin might be dead.
Right.
Yeah. But him carrying him through the streets though, past the Watchmen-esque newsman here,
Yeah.
or dude sitting near the news place.
Yep.
That's nice stuff right there.
Yeah.
And again, that sort of triptych with the character, with the background more or less static. And
Yep.
Yeah.
And I love when they put a chubby.
That's true. People in comics are ripped for no reason. Like, yeah, the barista is just super ripped because people can only draw ripped guys sometimes.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, the being able to create all these believable background characters, the populating New York with real people, like, you know, your angry jocks.
Yeah.
With their Larry Bird shorts on.
Exactly. Those crazy knee-high socks with the star on them. That just screams rapist. And
that original coloring is 15 times better than what I've got on my little app right now that I'm looking at. Probably the weight of age is doing something to the page too. It's probably a scan of a real book. That is 100 times better than what you're able to get digitally. Right there, 100 times better. And more.
Ed, make up your damn mind. Is it 15 times better or 100 times better?
It's 1,500 times better.
You need to get your math hyperbole on board.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Ed. Like, I do love.
With what, Jeff? 15 or 100? What do you agree with?
It's more.
Fair enough.
I do love the old coloring. They're like, it's one of those things that the limitations actually lead to, I think, really great art, because he didn't have all the 1,000 colors of the rainbow. He just had a few, and he made them work. And it's so simple and clean.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
there's so much work done in the black and white portion of the art.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where I was looking at the difference between the two coloring versions, the later hardback that I have that was all airbrushed versus the original art. There's so much work and feathering and gray tones and whatnot that they put into the black and white art. You really don't need that much crazy coloring going on. You just need to be able to understand what's going on.
So Zeck was saying that So the plot for the entire series was finished when Zeck started working on it. So he did all the covers ahead of time.
Right.
And so he said that this was the first one he did. Like
Whoa.
he had all the scripts, and so this is in this issue. That's when Spider-Man comes out of the grave, and he said that if you don't, as an artist, if you don't pick the hero coming out of the grave as your shot, then you shouldn't be in this business. And then when he did this one, all the other ones sort of fell into place. And I think that if you look at all of them together, they kind of tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a Jeff Johnson storytelling method right there. Let me tell you a little something, Ed, about how Jeff Johnson draws a comic book. say you're sharing a comic book studio with Jeff Johnson and Scott Kolins. Scott Kolins, he gets his script. Let's say it's from that guy that he drew The Flash with, Jeff Johns.
Mm-hmm.
Page 1, Scott draws page 1. Then he draws page 2. Then he draws page 3. Jeff gets a script. He's like, I like panel 3, page 17. That looks like a good place to start.
You go with your muse, man.
Let me just work, and then I'm just going to attack this comic from all angles until it's finally done.
So when you guys go to the Cheesecake Factory, he's just like, yeah, I'll have a piece of strawberry cheesecake to start and then I'll work my way around to proteins.
When I'm not going to name names, but when I worked at CrossGen, you were supposed to when you finished a page, you put it up on the wall, and then the inker then put their finished ink on top of that one, and then the colors came and they put their colors on top of that one. So when the person, basically the editor, came walking by, they could see where you were in the process, so they knew what was happening. It was a way to keep track of you. And I didn't work that way. I didn't work. I would do the pages that I thought were the most complicated. I would work scene by scene, and I would follow my muses. But I would put them all up, and I would put them in where they would go in a linear fashion. The ones were missing, right? So the editor came by, and she couldn't tell where I was at. She's like, "Well, where are you? I can't tell how close you are to being done. I can't tell how many pages you finished. I can't tell. I can't work this way. I can't keep track of you." And I went, "Well, it's easy. You just count the pages And that's how many I've done. And she goes, well, how do I know how many that is? I go, well, I've done 10. The vertical line next to the 0 is 10. That's 10.
Here's one piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper.
Yeah, no, we did not get along.
Well, that's pretty terrible as Vin Diesel rolls down my hood. That's really terrible, dude. I can't I can't imagine being that constricted. And like you said, you're being very generous about me drawing some comics, but like it's hard when you're really trying to really apply yourself for the first time ever.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And when you have as much respect for the art form, can we get the homeboy busting out of the grave, man?
Let's do that. Here we go.
This scene is very
More
conceptual.
naked people.
Yeah, this is very conceptual, and I love how he never really shows Spider-Man coming out of the grave. The closest you see to him, I mean, he shows it a little bit, but like this is powerful, man. It's like the metaphor of him sort of going through the stuff is him turning into a spider, being birthed again, and all this jazz. But the actual shot of it is this is what you get. The shot of him coming out this is what you get.
Yeah, it's just money in the bank.
Whoever owns that page, maybe they could sell that for $3 million damn dollars. Kick Mike some
worth
shekels. Yeah,
I'm sure. I hope Mike has some of these pages left. And then one of the things, like 2 weeks, when he finds out he's been gone for 2 weeks, that's just got to be. I would lose my shit too.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was a really great, again, another angle to look on these same kind of situations that have happened over and over and over again. To have this giant situation where like, oh yeah, you'd actually be out of it for a certain amount of time. You make it, a couple weeks or whichever it was, even if it was just a couple days, you'd be like, oh my Lord, that would be such a thing to get used to.
Yeah. I mean, poor Mary Jane.
Has anyone ever been knocked out here?
Yes.
Yeah, I have been as well. And even just a 2-minute knockout, you wake up and you're like, what?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
I can't imagine finding out you've been gone for 2 weeks. It'd be insane.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Ron, but when I've been knocked out, I'm one of those guys who twitches. Thank God I didn't pee myself. But like it's definitely one of the guys who twitches. It's embarrassing. But there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. That's like finding out you snore, but for the action genre. It's like
oh. Yeah, getting knocked out sucks.
Yeah.
On the other hand, knocking out Jeff is fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but
good luck with that.
These scenes where the love the love theme starts playing, I love this stuff, man. Because I mean, this is also comics, the so-called boring parts, but the parts that people actually emotionally connect with,
Yeah.
Him coming in through the window and them kind of receding down out of frame, even though, man, you are funky as hell. You was just in the grave. You telling me he just came out through this window and jumped in the bed with his outside clothes on? Nah, I don't think so, dog.
I didn't even think about that, Ed. Of course. It's got to be ripe.
And in that second to last panel, he's got a smile going on.
He has been in the rain, Ed. I mean, maybe it's washed and clean.
He must have had a bar of zest with him while he was swinging through the city.
Funky.
He got some Spidey pheromones going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is one of the things I love most about Peter Parker as a character and Spider-Man is that he just got back. He's been basically dead for 2 weeks. The first thing he does is goes out and he has to stop Kraven. Like, that's always been my favorite thing about Spider-Man. He always does what's right, no matter what the cost. And it's usually him paying it.
Well, because he didn't do the right thing once, right, Jeff?
Yep.
And what happened?
That kind of thing will haunt you.
Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, like when I was waxing philosophical for like 10 minutes, it seemed like, Jesus, what's wrong with me? About like how comics are this malleable thing, you can imbue them with blah blah blah, and that's you put over people like Kraven. Right. This jazz of him going out to do like you said, this I'm a hero, I have to put all my needs on the side and do the heroic thing. That's comics too. This thing is a real microcosm of comics, like a villain trying to, on some level, replace the hero. That's what Lex Luthor's been trying to do for 80 odd years, right? He's trying to replace Superman, but this is like, no, we're going to make it that he's really actually trying to replace him, and he's going to do it. So what happens when the villain replaces the hero? What happens when the villain all the way wins? what happens.
Yep.
But it's what's so great about this story and that theme is it's like it's just not where Peter Parker comes from. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like I love, we're skipping ahead a little bit, but I love that Kraven has that realization of like, oh wait, this is actually a good man.
Yep.
Like my nemesis has actually been a good man. And Peter is not driven by ego. You know what I mean? He wants the 2 weeks back. I mean, that's, he's the most angry because bad stuff's been done in his name and he got 2 weeks of being a newlywed stolen from him, but he doesn't care about, like he has no dog in that fight that Kraven has been so obsessed with,
Nope.
It's fascinating because almost every character's got some kind of like, hey, you can't, even Steve Rogers got a little bit of ego, in that regard, in terms of, like obviously totally Tony Stark does, Thor does, like, but that's just not where Peter Parker comes from,
He's a hero even for heroes, which is the wild thing about Spider-Man.
I do think I think Steve is 100% right. I think that's one of the reasons that he has such universal appeal is that he is selfless, right? He's not doing it. He's doing it for sad reasons. He wants to make a difference, and he did. He didn't do the right thing once, and that he's never going to forgive himself for that. But like, he's always a character about redemption and doing the right thing.
I would say, while on the internet, on Twitter, some dude posted, you got to get rid of one of these guys. And it was like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and Iron Man. Mm-hmm. And literally nobody picked Spider-Man.
Right.
Not one person said get rid of Spider-Man. Everybody, there was somebody who didn't like Supes. There's somebody who didn't like Batman. It's obviously a lot of people don't like Iron Man. But everybody loves Spider-Man because you relate to him everybody relates to him in some way. Mm-hmm. Whether you're the smart nerd who's awkward, whether you're the funny guy, where you're the person who stands up for people no matter what the consequences, everybody gets the character, and there's not a lot to dislike about him.
Yeah. Well, I think he's the strangest mixture of like everyman, he's the everyman, but then there's something attainable about him in a way, but I think, and this is something that, Bendis did so great with the creation of Miles Morales, but I think it also hit on that need too. And I've read and heard people talk about this, or this was really powerful hearing Simu Liu talk about this, where it's like, I think another reason why people love Spider-Man so much is that anyone can be Spider-Man, like anyone of any ethnicity anywhere on planet Earth could be Spider-Man because of his costume and stuff,
Yep.
And seeing that interview with Simu Liu when he was talking about Liu, where he used to dress up as a superhero when he was an aspiring actor, but the only part he could play was Spider-Man, because he's of Asian descent, and so
he's fully masked. Yep.
That's what's so beautiful about Shang-Chi and about Miles and that representation of that. And I know the connection that my son, who's African American, when he saw Miles Morales in that movie for the first time, like what that did, but I think it's why we all love Peter Parker and we all love Spider-Man, but I think that's another reason why everyone connects to him too, is you can project yourself into him. He's kind of a blank slate, in a way where you just can't do that with Superman or Batman or,
that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Where were we?
The best picture of Kraven the Hunter that has ever existed in human. Like this is it. That's it. That's the one right there.
With it's that composition is with the beams with Spider-Man over their shoulder on the elephant. Oh, it's so good. And that crazy elephant eye. Yeah.
The lighting on Kraven's face is really great. Even on the hair, the uplighting, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he even has good chest hair.
He's got the best.
Well groomed.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll just really quick about this. That spider, rat, foreground, middle ground, sort of puddles and cabs and stuff, and then like the cocoon of the all of it works. It's textbook establishing shot.
Yeah.
Textbook.
Well, because it's not just this is where we are in space, but this is where we are in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right? Like it gives you all it's a visual recap. I don't even know, how do you even envision that? Like it's just good, it's good writing.
Yeah.
And then again, those like a triptych or a quadric across the top, showing you that cinematic movement and jazz. And Spider-Man being a real creep. Like my thing that I kind of hate is that they eschewed or whatever the black suit when it wasn't a symbiote and he was just rocking it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, of all the alt anythings, this is my jam. This is my favorite period of Spider-Man. This period where he's kind of spiders aren't blue and red. I love that suit. It's classic. It should be what he wears all the time. I admit that very much. But my favorite is this exact era. This is my jam.
It's too bad we kind of missed that opportunity now with, Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire. They just kind of colored the suit black because they always feel like the films have to have texture. The costumes have to have texture.
Mm-hmm.
And then now with creating Tom Hardy and having, they've missed an opportunity. It would have been fun to have been able to have done a full movie with Spidey in the black suit and have it be something that paid off, a movie later or a crossover movie later where it's like, oh shit,
Hell, never say never. They still could anytime they wanted to.
That's true. Well, one of the things I think is really
but I
interesting.
like saying never, Scott.
Steve always says it. Having
to
it
me.
be the black suit for this particular story was such a great confluence of happenstance, right? Because when he originally wrote it, he had the red and blue suit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So this just worked out because I think the story works so much better when everyone's in the black suit.
For sure.
It fits
Right.
with the whole somber attitude and everything, spookier attitude, all that stuff fits really well. Yeah.
And this page doesn't work without acting. Like you can draw punches, you could draw muscles all day, but if he doesn't do the acting at the bottom,
Oh yeah.
you don't get what this is.
Right. I won. It's that punch in the mouth. And by the way, how tough do you have to be to take a full-blown 2-shot from Spidey
Right. Yeah.
and just laugh it off?
Or crazy.
Those are good herbs.
Yeah, he's off them herbs. He's off them herbs.
He got some roots and herbs. Potions. Yeah. I love the lighting in this.
That strip, that second panel, that looks like a Punisher with a mustache panel. That's like giving me real Mike Zeck Punisher vibes right there. Just because that's kind of the lighting he would always do on the Punisher suit. There was always a bunch of blue to set off the black. And just real quick, on Bob McLeod, but I didn't remember that he had inked this. I always envisioned this as a John Beatty job in my head. You know what I'm saying? So seeing the difference between this and what he did later with Beatty, that's interesting. It's really both of them. I've inked them really great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, it is interesting the difference.
Ed, do you ink your own stuff? Obviously, you have someone who's going to ink stuff for you?
No. Especially when I'm doing digitally, you can just go in with the pen whenever you want. But when I'm doing traditional stuff, I got my Kuretake brush pens. I got my Japanese kind of watery, overblown ink that I think I should have just bought some regular old American or India ink or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I got all the tools. I'm like that dude, that fat dude with the whole jersey of the team. He's not ready to play, but boy, he's out kidded.
I got my Dungeon Master's Guide, and I got my Kitty Pryde, and Nightcrawler too.
Hey Scott, what's let me check out what you're doing there.
Ooh,
Wow.
It's getting there.
I like the texture on your bricks there, buddy. Those
Man.
good.
like
Those have been through some things.
yeah, that's great, Scott.
Yeah, I like what you're doing.
I'll send you my new address.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the sky too. The sky is killing.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice work with the Coptics.
I like all the circles that you put in there.
And the triangles.
Were you influenced by Ron's use of the circle, Scott?
Yeah.
And what he's been doing, or
We're all learning stuff tonight.
It was
Couldn't have drawn it without that.
Oh, and And I love this, just this shedding right there that was happening on that page. That shedding of Homeboy's identity. Like, I don't need your identity anymore, fool. I can put my jungle draws back on because I beat you. You suck.
I do love.
I don't need.
I
to
do
be
love
you
that he
anymore.
just pulls to full nakedness right in front of him. Like, hey, here's my dick. Enjoy.
Yeah.
In the same way that Jeff and I once counted all the humans that were killed by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first Terminator, I kind of I want to go and capture all the naked men in Kraven's last night.
Oh, it's many. It might even be more. Yeah.
But just almost like this part, like this comic legitimizes Kraven's whole shtick because it was. I hate to keep harping on it, but it's really stupid before. And in this, you can see what he was thinking. I can kind of see why, like Batman only gets the benefit of the doubt that the whole Bat motif is not stupid as hell because he doesn't look like a bat, but they always work very hard on the psychology of it to make you buy it that this is this guy's interpretation of a bat and his incessant branding of the bat thing is cool. Mm-hmm. Trust me on that because it's just psychologically founded. They never really gave that to this dude before this story, and now his goofy little uniform like works for me now. Like that when he put back on the lion vest just now, I felt something. It was like a ceremonial real thing. Instead of him just put on a stupid costume, he was putting back on his vestments of a real character,
his identity.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of that around this time.
What's that, Scott?
There was a bunch of that around this time of taking characters that may have been beloved when we were childhood, but may not have lasted as well under current, or at that time, current depictions of the character, whatnot. But then somebody would come along and go, no, but actually, if you really push the Russian angle on Kraven and you do this and that with him, you do this and that, suddenly he's almost feels like a brand new character, a whole new angle on him and a lot more depth and interest can happen for the character. But it's just building off of what was already there.
Oh, yeah. And to that point, the Alan Moore of it all in this, too, because like Frank was getting a lot of credit earlier. This is 86, but then Watchmen dropped right around then, too. And I think this the way the panels echo each other and all that, somebody's been working in the biz for years and years, like DeMatteis, looking at, oh, my God, if I expect a little bit of control over these panels here, I can set up these mirroring. I can set up this fearful symmetry,
Mm-hmm.
So I love that part.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that now so much of the lettering is done. I mean, I think all the lettering, except for maybe at the very few occasions, is all done digitally. And when you send it in, like a lot of times it's full script. So as a comic book artist, you place it yourself when you're designing the panel because you know exactly what it's going to be. But they were working Marvel style. So when the pencils came in and Matteis was like, oh, now I'm going to really write this. He was able to place the word balloons himself and to really control the flow and pacing of the dialogue in a way that I don't think is done anymore. And I think that it really pays off because everything works so well together. It's much more like a symphony than just a couple people playing music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in this stuff.
There's definitely some harmonies going on, if you will.
Do you have the next page? Oh yeah, that's my jam right there. That top panel. Just
Where
get off your stupid prop, you loser! Like,
yeah, dumbass elephant. Oh yeah, so good.
Yeah, I can lift up a car. I'm Spider-Man, god damn it.
And also just the tenderness, though. You saw that thing right under that panel, that tender ass panel where he's like touching Homeboy's cheek. Like, I am you. I was you. I understand you. We're together, baby. This is some Joker Batman stuff. You could see that lineage.
It's so creepy.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the other themes is how much we define ourselves by people in our lives, right? So like Vermin defines himself through his fear of Spider-Man and Captain America and his hunger, right? His need and fear of the outside. That's why he's underground so much. Spider-Man definitely defines himself by the mistakes he's made and the things he wants to do in his relationship with Mary Jane. And Kraven defines himself in opposition to Spider. So there's just a lot of psychological psychodramas going on that these themes, I think, really they make comics not just entertainment, but they're educational too. You're like, oh, other people also have all these things going on all the time. So even though I feel like I'm the star of this show, that guy is the star of his show, and we're all on this stage together.
Yeah.
I'd like just to give a shout out to Tom Frank or Frank, who recognized that I was quoting Weezer. Thank you, Tom. I feel seen.
It's Tom Frank. He's our buddy.
Yeah, Tom is actually going to be on. We're going to Tom's going to come on the show at some point. We're going to talk about giant robots.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The song was that one about in my garage. Was that the one?
That's
Steve?
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I unraveled a few sweaters in the 90s.
Yeah, that album got a lot of play after somebody had finished the deadline. We'd gone and eaten sushi and drank too much sake to celebrate, and then come back to the studio and blared music as loud as we possibly could.
Those are good
Hell
times.
yeah.
Weezer, that first album, and maybe some
That and Soundgarden.
Soundgarden, Super Unknown, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is another thing I wanted to mention. All the windows that people are jumping through are so rad looking.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's so many windows.
Ron, how do you feel about the fact that Mike Zeck's using a lot of squares and rectangles in those cases?
I mean,
and not
it's so
just
impressive. They even look like squares and rectangles. I'm impressed.
They would be better other shapes, but you get what you get.
Yeah.
Those circular windows, those are for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
I bet some of those glass pieces were triangular.
Hard to draw. But I also love this equilibrium that's on that last page. I mean, you can keep on this page, but the equilibrium of him jumping out the window. He's like, "You beat me. I beat your ass, but you put me in the ground for 2 weeks. You beat me you beat me unimpeachably. I'm real tired after this whole adventure, though, and I haven't taken a shower even after did all this stuff with Mary Jane. I still haven't taken a proper shower, so I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna come back and get you later."
Yeah.
And Kraven's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna take this time to do what I need to do."
And it was raining. It's like their Notebook moment, okay? The rain washed Peter Parker clean.
It rains very hard in New York.
Dude, New York rain, he was dirtier than when he went in the grave.
That's actually true.
Especially in 1987. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the city was slimy.
There's
Yeah,
important
This is
stuff
so
too.
dark.
Yeah.
Jesus.
This is like
Comics Code Authority. Is Comics Code Authority on this one?
I believe
Probably
they
still
are.
is.
Did they get some special dispensation? I don't know.
Well, we never actually see. It's all suggested.
Yeah, it's just the silhouette of a rifle in the man's mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
There were apparently discussions about this one, talking about the different ways that it could be interpreted, or that fans or whatnot would see it. In fact, I think DeMatteis said he rewrote a scene after this or something like that, just to make sure that there wasn't any, or wasn't supposed to be any, confusion that you're considering this a normal outcome for someone to do, that because kids reading this book or whatnot.
They were not glorifying suicide.
Right, glorifying.
Right.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Repeatable, not doing repeatable action.
Yeah.
Yeah, like jumping out of a window because nobody has windows in their house. So all that jumping out of windows was fine. But I love this thing about time. Like, everybody's waxed rhapsodic about time in comics. Like, time is what you make it in comics.
Mhm.
It's whatever amount of time you choose to spend on each panel and stuff. But like the time between Crack and Coom, like that little whatever happens when that first little bit of lightning hits, and then the sound from whatever thunder, whatever comes through. And the moments that's happening, and it's of course mimicking the gun blast, and that's comics 101 right there too. I mean, that's real comics right there.
That's real sophisticated. You know what, Ed? I didn't even notice that there was the delay until you just pointed it out. It's brilliant. You're right.
Again, very cinematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But better on some level, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Scott, I think Ed said that was Comics 101, not Movies 101.
Oh. You're right. I'm so sorry.
But one of the things I think is really interesting
Please
about
continue.
these sound effects and the way Ed was talking, like pointed out that it shifts, like it lingers. The sound in my head gets louder, right? It lingers and it gets louder, and I can hear the other sound behind the rain on the window. I like it's all the
And that's just your imagination, Jeff.
Yeah, but all the things that are just implied. I have great imagination.
You do.
And you know what's really weird is when I was reading this story, I did not remember this section of it at all. And I'm not trying to denigrate it at all because it's very important to the story.
But it's almost like you're right.
It's
It's almost like an epilogue in a way.
Yeah.
Like.
But I think it's weird because, like, no matter what pictures we see, that the PTSD, as people have talked about it, I mean, I'm loath to throw that term around, but I think it fits with what Peter has gone through in this, of him like experiencing being in the grave versus his situation now of being in the sewer chasing vermin, because he has to, on a comic book level, prove that he could beat vermin by himself because Kraven did it on some stupid level like that. But at the same time, vermin is dangerous and he's killing people. And that's obviously the more important part. He has to face his fears of being underground and being slimy and all that. He has to go back and face his fears, and he does feel fear because he's Spider-Man, not any of these other characters that can't voice that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is not the man without fear. Like that's why Peter is so brave, right? Like he feels fear, but he does it anyway. He's terrified for himself, for Aunt May, for everyone in his life, and he knows the real consequences of inaction.
And yet, at the same time, he's totally compassionate towards his enemies in here. He's not just trying to beat the crap out of this and that. He's trying to help them. He mentions how at the end that he's going to talk to Reed Richards about trying to cure that guy.
Yeah, I mean, man, what everything that Stan and Steve and Jack and the whole gang made in the 60s, it's like, it's just a ridiculous embarrassment of riches, but Spidey really is the jewel in the crown, Yeah.
I mean, at the very end, when the cops are like, even after all that, he wants to help this guy out after being put through everything that he's been put through.
Yep.
It's like, you're like, yeah, that's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of superhero he is.
And I love how this whole issue shows that it's not easy to do that. Because in the middle of it, he's defeated Vermin kinda, and he's like, are you gonna chill out? And Vermin's like, no. And he has to fight him more.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's not some easy choice to like be nice to some people. It's not some easy choice to do that. It's a hard one. And the harder the choice is, the more it means.
Absolutely.
Damn. Yeah.
Well, having just gone through all of this, the way that Spider-Man Peter fights vermin is so different than the way Kraven does.
Mm-hmm.
Just the how he hits him, the things just the brutality. It's just different. Peter Parker doesn't fight like that.
Yep. I love that they made a difference in it and they showed it. They thought about it.
The difference between a hero and a villain, or I mean, just a crazy person.
Before that, go back to that last page, Jeff, because you realize in this entire comic, that's like the one true classic kind of Spidey swinging shot. Like, okay, this has been totally brutal. As I said, this is true PTSD, but he's like, look, I'm still Spidey. I'm still swinging through. It's just one panel, but it's the equivalent of like in any of the Toby Spider-Mans or something, when we get like that montage of CG
how you end the movie.
Swinging through the city.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the only times in this whole comic that takes place in the daytime.
Right. I was going to say, it's not raining anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. The sun has come out.
Yeah, okay.
That was another brilliant choice of having all that rain going on.
Yeah. Oh, you're right, Scott. That's right on it.
Yep. Which was another thing that, it's not necessarily just intrinsic to it, but was a huge thing that I remember being in Dark Knight when they were talking about all that heat of Gotham until that storm broke and then we got Batman. Using those elements around him or in here in the Spider-Man story, all that rain and stuff during all the morose and bad times. It's great to then counter that with nice things around when good things are going on.
Absolutely.
Right.
And here's the fellow hunters burying their homeboy. And I love his now his stupid leopard sigil means something.
Yeah.
After all the drama of this story, that thing draped over the casket, that actually means something.
Yep.
With the sun setting.
Well, and right, the whole. I mean, what's the proverb, right? If you seek vengeance, dig two graves.
Yeah,
She
boy.
did,
Right?
And
Yeah.
Right?
Boom.
Two graves.
Dude, Dr. Jones coming from the rafters with that one.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, man.
All right,
Good
guys.
stuff.
There you go.
And the spider and the rat still fighting in the grave, and I think they get covered up with dirt or something. I think there's a rat in there and a spider, and they both get covered up with dirt.
I mean, it's
Awesome.
I know that the symmetry is definitely the thing, that Blake poem, right? But I mean, the whole story does have a very clean ending. Like it's super satisfying.
How great and crazy that JM like wrote this just as then he and McGuire and Keith Giffen and stuff are creating that first Justice League. It's like,
yep.
And he's writing some of like the snappiest, funniest moonlighting style dialogue while writing this at the same time.
And that's that's really the range of, comics. Ed, you were talking with Bill, one of your episodes, just about how wide of subject matter any comic can be. Like, it just depends on the creators. And I think that JM's like, he was writing moonlighting and also writing this horrible Dark Knight scary stuff. Like, it's such a crazy medium that you can do anything in it.
Yeah, well, it's a medium, not a genre, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that whole thing of like, well, comics are this. No, they're not. They're everything from mouse to the first time I read Kraven was in the first time I ever saw Kraven, he got put over so hard and I still didn't like him. It was in this weird JCPenney catalog comic that came with like a pack of underwear or something. And literally in the comic, Kraven is in like some Midwestern city, and so is Peter Parker, and Peter Parker's on assignment. And then the Hulk shows up, wandering, and he turns to the Hulk, and Kraven has been seeking to capture the Hulk. And he does. He uses a grain silo to capture the Hulk. He tricks Hulk into jumping into it, and all the grain pushing in from all the sides gives Hulk no leverage, so he's trapped. And I think Spider-Man had to save the Hulk, and then the Hulk and Spider-Man combined barely beat Kraven in this comic book. I want somebody, some of the people in the comments maybe try to search that down.
Yeah,
I would love to see
that
it
sounds
ever
great.
again.
That
It's
does sound like a great
amazing.
one.
It's for something, JCPenney's like, marketing gag. Like it might as well have been a fruit pie ad. And it was that good.
I love those ads.
I think the first time I saw Kraven was in one of those Spidey's Amazing Stories.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I think I saw, because
which would have been lighter fare.
Marvel was good about reprinting all the stuff from the 60s during the 70s. So I think my first exposure to Kraven might have been a reprint of the Ditko stuff.
Right. Yeah, Ditko that's a wild design.
Well, and pulled off by, that's another thing. Last things last, I guess. Just Zeck and McLeod and all the DeMatteis. This thing really stands the test of time because I think everything was rendered like perfectly. Like if he'd have been a little bit more melodramatic, and I don't know how you could get more, but if you were a little bit, turn it to 11 instead of 10 on the melodrama, this falls apart. You don't introduce that shamanistic magic aspect of it to keep the themes all together and keep the characters in place. That it'll go wrong. Just too much logic in this. Too much magic or too much logic, either way, would have messed this up. But as a piece, that's why it stands the test of time, man. And everybody's operating at the top of their. And I'm just thinking these were monthly comics to these guys. DeMatteis said in an interview you sent around, he wasn't thinking about this lasting the test of time. Nobody in comics does. They want to get their deadline done. So under deadline pressure, this beautiful piece of art came out. Don't talk to me about no damn illustrators. They get 27 hours to work on a painting of a fairy. Don't tell me about none of that bullshit. Comics are where it's at, man.
A monthly deadline is brutal. I haven't done it in forever. Scott still does it. I can't even get my head around it.
I never did it even when I was supposed to be doing it.
Exactly.
I'm really glad we had you guys on. A, you guys are great folks. B, I don't think I would have ever thought about, if we were trying to list all of my favorite comics from the 80s, I think I would have just forgotten about this one. And it was a real treat to revisit it and see how well it still holds up,
Well, that's Ed's fault. He gave us such a wide selection of things.
God damn you, Ed.
They were all great. We're gonna have to have you guys on again and go back to other gems on that list.
I also look forward to seeing what Ron can do with other shapes.
Yeah. Watch out.
There's the rhombus, trapezoid.
Yeah, I might even draw a tree at some point. It could happen.
It could definitely happen.
Oh man, but yeah, thank you so much for having us on. If Scott doesn't come back on, peace to him too. You guys are great. You guys are a great watch. Keep doing it. I'll be here doing my paintings and my drawings, listening to you guys, because it is like, I know we're in these weird times where everybody's so disconnected, but it has a little bit of connection. It feels like we're part of a piece. It feels like I'm working with you guys or whatever. And I know that's kind of like Rupert Pupkin or whatever, but like it's really cool to have you guys and Drink and Draw as a whole of a piece, all of you guys just being there to be working with, and to see what you guys work on every time and hear you guys' insights, especially about animation and storyboarding. I mean, it's really illuminating what you guys do. So thank you so much for having us on, man.
Thanks.
And I'll take it.
Absolutely.
Scott is. Oh, there he is. Okay, great.
Oh yeah, can we see your final piece?
My phone died.
Look at that handsome devil.
Yeah, this first. Yeah, that's. I recognize that thumb. Can we see your whole piece? Can you see your whole piece? And
hang on a second. There it is.
Oh, the
Nice.
Spidey sense, baby.
Yeah, I love that. Nice work.
That's awesome.
Love
Nice
it,
work.
man. Love it.
All right. So I want to a little outro. I want to make sure that everyone checks out the description box because Ron and Ed are putting together fantastic content. I hate that word, but you guys do put hilarious stuff together. It's very enjoyable. It's good. You guys have been doing great podcasts for a long time. I think your subject matter is great, and you definitely make it feel as though there's friends in the room hanging out, which is something that you miss in these times.
Yep, right back at you, man. So again, thank you so much for having us on, and I look forward to you guys doing your next animation breakdown because I love the Thundercats episode. You guys going through frame by frame, like right, and Scott with the straight face going, and the sword, starts out as a short one, but gets longer and thicker as you do. And I was like, he didn't bat an eye. He didn't bat an eye. He was talking about the sword.
Right.
Oh,
he's pretty hard to break. He's pretty hard to break.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Well, let's see if I can get some outro music. All right.
Oh, wait, I gotta be careful not to break copyright. I almost went into purple haze.
Yeah, don't do that.
You're gonna get us struck.
There you go. A little bit of this.
Circles.
All right.
I can draw
do this.
circles.
The best shape is circles.
There you go. Trying to do this. It's not working.
There
Nice.
we go.
How many of these have we done? Says the guy who never has to press the buttons. But
Yeah. Thanks. It's not as easy as it looks, man.
This is like the ending of the Lord of the Rings movies.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Join us next time.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks, JD Hybrid X.
Thanks, guys.